First up, let me say how very welcome you are to today's webinar, Pitfalls to Avoid When Launching and Scaling Your International Channel. We're delighted you could join us, and we hope you come away from the webinar with a couple of key tips. Today's panel is hosted by our very own VP of Sales, John McArdle, and John is joined by two very special guests with a wealth of knowledge in the channel space. Firstly, we have Justine Cross, co-founder EMEA Channels. Justine is a seasoned EMEA channel veteran with over 30 years experience working with technology startups. She has held director roles at ShoreTel, Zulti's, and in recent times, Watchful Software. Her passion is to work from a clean sheet of paper and build out successful partner communities across EMEA. Her market knowledge is across unified comms, cloud, and cybersecurity, where she works with and alongside partners in over 80 countries. Today, Justine heads up EMEA Channels, a pure channel consultancy company helping startup and scale-out vendors grow successfully through channels across EMEA. Secondly, we have Nehul Goradia, co-founder Enabler One. With 20+ years experience working for various tech companies, ranging from startups to global majors such as Oracle and Lionbridge, Nehul is recognized as one of the channel champions in the Middle East by ITP's Channel Middle East. Over the years, he has helped build the channel and alliance network in the Middle East and Africa for companies including Avaya, Huawei, NetIQ, Novel, Extreme Networks, Netgear, Molex, Bitfender, McAfee, and Kaspersky. A go-to-market leader, Nehul has deep experience and expertise in building markets, establishing alliances and channels, launching new products, and charting new territories for tech organizations. And today's moderator is our very own John McArdle. John has worked in the tech sector for 30 years in a number of industry sectors, including telecoms, travel, banking, finance, and government. He has held several senior roles in companies including Ipswich, SmartBear, Capgemini, Seville Systems, and BT. During his career, he has been a first builder of international channels and scaled existing regional channels globally. He has a wealth of experience finding, evaluating, recruiting, and managing the full range of channel partners, including OEMs, global system integrators, distributors, VARs, DMRs, MSPs, CSPs, referral partners, solution providers, marketplaces, ATC partners, and finally, global alliances. That is a lot of different partner types. So with that, I'm going to pass you over to John to get underway.
And thanks very much, Brenda, for the introduction, and welcome everybody that's joined the webinar live. Just want to special thanks to Justine, who kindly has given up part of her personal vacation, who travelled from Germany to Wales today to join us, and to Nehul, who again is our great colleague who's based out in Dubai. So welcome everybody. We'll start a little bit just with some context sharing in terms of why companies may look to build a channel or scale a channel, just some of the typical drivers. What's needed, what are the considerations, the top things you need to think about if you're building a channel or even scaling that out. And then we're going to get straight into a very hands-on panel discussion, and you'll find that we have a great set of topics that people from the field wanted us to cover, but you're going to get very straight talking answers. So if anybody's of a nervous disposition, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a very straight talking panel discussion. We'll cover pitfalls, where established vendors scale their channel may come unstuck. What does a strategy and plan look like if you want to embark upon such a venture? What are the sort of skills and profiles you need in the people that are going to make your channel build out successful? And how do you actually select the tooling and the platforms that are going to help you on that journey to be successful? And then we'll get the team to share their top tips. But equally importantly, as Brenda said, we will be interspersing the discussion with polls to really get your feedback as people that have come onto this for learning or maybe sharing your knowledge. So what do you want to find out about? And we do have a pool of questions that have already come in from registrants, and we'll aim to cover as many of those. So please stay with us. As Brenda said, the recording will be available, but the live experience will be much more entertaining. Okay, Brenda. So why build a channel? And typically there are many reasons, but these are typically the 4 reasons that we would see. People may want to enter new markets. When we say new markets, that may be new geographies, it may be new countries, new regions, but it may be a different type of market. It might be a different vertical that you can't reach. And a very common example of a vertical that's not easy to reach for many vendors, particularly if you're an emerging vendor, is government or public sector. That's typically handled by very large companies that have frame agreements in place. So markets can be sectoral or they could be geographic. The other very important reason, of course, is growing sales, that you need that scalability, and you may not have the funding or the capacity or even the know-how to scale your sales team on the ground, and you want to leverage in-region capability. You may want to develop that local sales presence as well. You may mix and match that with some of your own team who may become your channel managers in the field. Or you may have a product stack that you're very comfortable with your sales model, but you simply need a distributed network in many regions that can offer delivery, services, training, and actually get your product out to market. It's very common for people that have a very clear distinction that they're in the product business and don't want to offer services. So there's a very good delineation between what the partner does and what you as a vendor does. Next slide, please, Brenda.
Okay, so we're going to launch our first poll of the webinar here, and we're just going to ask you, is your company planning to build its first channel in the next 12 months? So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds there to vote. And as we've already mentioned, if you have any questions at any stage, just pop them into the question panel and I'll direct them to the panel later on in the webinar. Okay, we still have a couple coming in. So we'll just let that run for another second. Okay, perfect. I'm going to close that one out now. And we're going to run another quick one as well. So this is for people, for those of you who already have a channel, are you planning to scale your channel network internationally in the next 12 months? So if you have a if you have a channel at the moment, are you planning to scale? Okay, we still have some coming in there. We'll give it another couple of seconds. Okay, we'll close that out there, and I will pass it back over to you, John.
Thanks, Brenda. And during the discussion, and certainly during the panel session, we will go through some of the key considerations, but this is just a neat memoir for anybody that's looking to develop a channel in particular. We strongly encourage people to think about your strategy, and your channel strategy should align to the business strategy for your business, and also ideally your business ethos and culture and values. And we do encourage people to think about a plan to realize that strategy as well. You got to think about your channel organizational structure, how you want to set that up. And we'll talk about some of the team structures that we see. What's your partner program? So what are the compelling programs that are going to attract partners to work with you as a vendor? And how do you differentiate those potentially against your competitors? How then are you going to go about recruiting your partners and onboarding them? Is that something that you have the capacity and skills to do yourselves, or do you need to get outside help or expertise in certain areas? Partner enablement is a next key step then, where now that you've secured those partners, how do you equip them for selling, for marketing and getting your brand out into the market, and for delivering or even training or consulting around your products and services? And then you're into the whole area of the real motion around partner marketing, partner selling, to get your market message out, what you do, what you want the partner to do, and how the sales motion will actually work. And most importantly, we talk about partner management and success. And even though success appears in the very last bullet here, we strongly encourage you in your channel strategy to make sure that you include mutual definitions of success. So what will success look like for you as a vendor? What will success look like for the partners that you're going to work with? And don't leave that as an afterthought. And we'll explore that as some of the topics that we go through today. Next slide, please, Brenda.
Oops.
So one of the things that we'll explore, and what this picture really represents, is that one of the big challenges for people is either building out their channel or scaling their channel is the complexity of choice that's available to you today. When I started working with channel partners more than 20 plus years ago, there was a fairly limited choice. It was typically distributors, resellers, maybe technology partners with some OEM. But you can see that the whole area of channel has matured into this concept of whether your go-to-market motion is sell to or sell through the partner or sell with. And that has opened up many different types of partners that you can work with and choose to work with. And some of those partners arguably sit across all three motions. So global system integrators and consulting firms are companies that I've worked with, and I've sold to them, I've sold through them, and I've sold with them as well. So you've got to think very carefully about the types of partners that you want to work with and you're equipped to work with. And then where the real complexity comes in, then when you start to look at the different geographies that you want to work with, most people divide the world up into zones or regions, like the Americas, Latin America, EMEA. So think about the regions. Then you've got to pick the countries that you want to work within, then the partners within those countries, and then the types of partner programs that are going to work firstly in those different regions or geographies, and that you can also support. So the complexity of choice that you have to deal with is what we want to, share some of our experiences today, particularly from the panel, and help you navigate that choice. Next poll then, Brenda, please.
Okay. So here we're going to ask, do you think your company has the right talent and skills in-house to build and or scale a channel? And just a quick reminder again, if you have any questions, just pop them into us via the question panel, and John, Justine, and Nehul will answer them towards the very end. Okay, I think, oh, no, we still have some answers coming in. So still popping in, so we'll just give it another second there and close that out and pass it over to you again, John.
Thanks, Brenda. And one of the topics we will talk about, and thanks everybody for your inputs to the last poll in particular, which will inform that. Again, one of the things that we encourage people to do is really look to automate the basics of channel management. One of the key principles that you will hear each of the panelists speak about is make it easy to do business with you as a vendor. Now, the other side of that as well is make it as easy as possible as well for your own people, your own partner team, your own operations team, your own finance team, as well to do business with partners. So it's very much a two-way street. And some of the things that we see that partners want from vendors is a very easy to access, easy to use portal where they can get really critical content at their fingertips. That's content for their salespeople, for their marketing people. And quite often you start quite small where you might build the portal, you might build a catalog, and then they want things like deal registration where they know that they're getting value from you, where they have an opportunity to get a good opportunity where they can work that opportunity and potentially get exclusivity for a period of time, or possibly even get additional margin for winning that. But you can see through that circle really around the people that are both the partner people and your people as a vendor is try and automate, make everything self-service where possible, and give people dashboards and insights, emails, spreadsheets. Those technologies don't scale anymore, and it's very difficult for people to keep on top of that sort of analog technology, as we call it. So we use this concept of a good platform where you can govern your channel programs. You can allow your partners to orchestrate different types of programs that you offer to different parts of their customer target base. Make sure it's optimized for automation, and ultimately you'll end up with a digital workplace. So you're giving a two-way platform and taking people off email or static data sets such as spreadsheets that don't really scale. And we'll touch into this again more. So Brenda, I think we've got one final poll before we get right into the panel discussion. If you want to bring that up, please.
We certainly do. So here we're asking, what tools will you use or do you use to manage your partner network? Options include partner, and please tick all that apply. So if you use a partner portal, a CRM, which is a customer relationship management platform, a PRM, a partner relationship management platform, an LMS, learning management system, or if you don't currently have a channel, please select. So definitely some favorites coming out there from the audience. And as I mentioned, we will go through all the poll results later on. Okay, I'm going to close that off now and pass it back to you to start the panel discussion, John.
Wonderful. So Justine and Nehul, we've got some compelling questions. Some have come in from the audience. So I'll pick each of the questions and ask you to comment on each of those. So my only advice to the audience is fasten your seatbelt. So if I can start with the first question then, and Justine, please start with yourself. Can you share with the audience, the common pitfalls that you have seen when you see startups or scale-up companies building their first channel?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, apologies, I've turned my camera off because I'm sitting in the mountains in Wales and I'm suffering with poor internet. So apologies for not being on camera. So pitfalls that I've seen. Well, I've seen lots. I've seen lots of failures. I've seen lots of good things. And actually there is a common ground. So for me, starting right at the beginning, because I work with a lot of startups, the reality is if you look at your product and your technology, is it really a channel product? So first of all, you need to identify first your market, and then is there a big enough market to push this through a channel? So a lot of the technology I see and I have seen are very vertical focused. There's not a huge market for them, and that vendor has said, hey, let's go and sign one of the top 4 distributors. There really isn't enough revenue to be delivered through that to make a channel successful. So understanding, does your product really suit a channel, is stage 1. The second point that I see is people class. I mean, and I specialize particularly in EMEA and particularly in Europe. And a lot of companies coming from outside of Europe, US, Asia, or actually countries within Europe still class this as one territory. And when they start to analyze, they don't really understand which markets to go for. So they talk about largest population. The reality of that would be Nigeria. They talk about the largest GDP, and that would be Germany. And actually, these different countries come with very complex go-to-market knowledge that you need to have to be successful. So, people talk about Germany. I live in Germany, so I can talk about this quite openly. Germany's a really tough market, and you have to respect language. So if you don't have a product in Germany and German, and you don't have marketing in German, it becomes very difficult. But also, Germany is a very, very strong country for in-house technology, in-country technology. And often, if you're from the US, you're from the UK, you're from Asia, you don't recognize the strength of their own market technology. And challenging them head to head when you're not ready, will cost you a lot of money, or you'll see mistakes. So choosing the right market, the right country at the right time is very, very important. And big isn't always beautiful. And then finally, I would say, I see a lot of particularly American. I apologize for picking on the US here. We see a lot of US companies saying, hey, we want to go into EMEA. What we're going to do, we're going to send over 2 or 3 of our really expensive guys. We're going to fund an office in central London, in Paris, or maybe Dubai these days. And we're going to send them over, and they're going to build everything really quickly for us. We're going to fund an office, fund them, fund their children in private school. And a year later, because they don't really know anyone in the markets, and relationships are very, very important in each individual country, never mind EMEA. For me, you end up wasting a lot of money, going back, tail between the legs, or saying, do you know what, we tried it, they're not ready for us. And actually, it's the opposite. So those are 3 things that I see, particularly around startups.
Great insights. And again, I did forewarn the audience that it would be a very honest panel discussion. So thank you, Justine. And Nehul, from your experience, particularly given that you've got a lot of expertise in the Middle East, Africa and parts of Asia, can you add to what Justine said, please?
Sure. First and foremost, good evening, good afternoon, good morning to wherever you guys are from. So it's good to have you all. Thank you so much, John and the team at Channel Mechanics for having us out here. And it's a topic that we're very passionate about, right? So there are quite a few things, right? And I'm going to start with the point that you started the conversation with in terms of why build a channel, right? One of the key reasons why you're building a channel is to build a scalable, repeatable revenue model. That's one of the key rationalities, right? When you want to look at channel as a business or when you're entering new geographies. But then there are a couple of points that come into play in which I look at it as a pitfall when people are looking at a channel-driven model is internal readiness. Most organizations, when they're scaling their channel internationally, they've assigned a channel manager, channel sales manager, a regional manager maybe, right? But that's it. The rest of the organization behind is not yet ready to support that channel-driven model. And that's bound to fail. It's not a one-person job, right? You need everybody within the organization, driven for the same objective. Second is expectation, right? I'll come in, I'll sign 10 partners, and bam, next morning I've got $10 million in revenue happening. It's never going to happen, right? It never does. Channel is a journey. You need to walk the path, right? There are no shortcuts. You will need to put in as much effort, if not more, as you would do for your direct revenue model, right? So that's 2 major points that I would talk around from a pitfall standpoint.
Excellent insights again. Thanks, Nehul and Justine, and I completely concur with the points that you've made from my experience as well of building those out. And I think an important point that you both touched on is respecting the culture of the countries, and Europe in particular and many regions around the world are really homogenous, is the perception, but they're very, very different in terms of business culture, relationships, how people do things. So thank you for those. If I can go to the next question that people have asked for, many established technology vendors, having had success possibly in their home market or their domestic market, want to scale internationally and expand their channel. And they're coming off of what they see as a successful baseline or successful blueprint. Can you share your experiences, for vendors that now looking to scale up, where they may come unstuck? And I may start with you, Nehul, for this one, please.
Sure. I think one key aspect that, and I've seen both failures and successes, right? When established vendors in one geography scale and try to get into other geographies. I think one of the key aspects that I've seen them fail is, I would term it in a single word, would be localization, right? So you've got a program, you've got a process, you've got the network structure that you want, and then you slap it across unilaterally across all the geographies that you want to enter into. It never works, right? And as Justine was talking, EMEA, let's take EMEA itself. We're talking 100 plus countries. Each country has its own nuance, its own laws, its own norms. You need to figure out what works, what doesn't work for each of those countries within that geography that you want to enter into. Most times, we have a centralized channel organization, right? So if you take EMEA, everybody's sitting in Europe somewhere and driving EMEA as a journey. But no idea how Middle East works, no idea how Africa works, right? It worked in Europe, so it should work everywhere else. The policy works in Europe, it should work everywhere else, and it doesn't, right? You need to localize, you need to understand the nuances that exist across your geographies for you to understand whether that channel program or process makes sense and whether you'll be successful or not. Second, and I think Justine did touch upon this point before, but when you enter a new market, right, you get enamored, you're gonna go after you want the biggest distributor, you want the biggest reseller to work for you, right? Whether they are the right ones or not, that's immaterial. You want the brand that is associated with them to be associated with your brand. There are 2 points, 2 issues that go with it, right? A, they are an established organization with as a well-oiled machine. They've got brands which they're earning revenues on. Unless and until you have a sizable revenue already coming out from that region, they won't be able to afford to even spend the effort in growing your brand. That's not their job. That won't be what they're going to look at doing, right? Second is because of that aspect, you don't look at specialized distributors or partners who could be ideally more suitable for you, who will put the effort, who are hungry for that business or that new technology, right? And they want to do good with you. And because you've gone with the bigger one, they won't come for you because you don't want to look at the smaller ones, but they actually might be more viable. But 9 out of 10 times, we've seen them go after some of the biggest names, and then a year later, it's like, you sit down, do a review, was the relationship successful? And then you figure out, oh, it didn't work. And then you go, but by then you've really lost a lot of time and effort and money in that market.
Yeah, great insights. And Justine, do you have an addition to add to that in terms of people that want to move from that successful base market into international markets, scaling up?
Just a couple of things. I totally agree with Nehul on, if you've signed a top, what we would call a broadline distributor in the US, and I go back to the US, and then you try and adopt that model instantly across EMEA, you're going to struggle. And I think the reason I believe this and have seen it is, if you still are a startup outside of your success region, so you have to act like a startup. And you need to engage with partners who are willing to work with a startup mentality. And if you consider yourself established, you're going to fail, because nobody's going to do that entrepreneurial work that needs to take place to make sure you're successful in each country. And it's absolutely true. If you already have a relationship in place with a large distributor, who openly will admit they're not the best at bringing emerging technologies to market, the people who are really good at doing that will not take on your product. So you really need to think about where you roll the contracts. And for me, that is exceptionally important. And then the other thing, if you are successful in your home market, and I've seen this with British, with German, with US and with Asian companies, we are really good at what we do. We are brilliant in our own market, and therefore we're going to be instantly brilliant when we go to the other countries. And that doesn't happen. So you arrive with a sense of arrogance and a sense of entitlement, where actually you haven't earned that in that region. And sometimes that's where vendors come get into trouble as well. We're best in our market. We've got everything working wonderfully. Why wouldn't it work in Germany? Why wouldn't it work in Spain? And you can't, we have the best. We have the best references in New York. We have the best references in London. Someone in Dubai doesn't really care about that. What have you done for my region? So it's those 2 points that I really would add to what Nehul said.
Good. Again, thanks, Justine, as well, for what it's like, really warts and all on the ground. Great insights there as well. One of the things we talked about earlier in terms of considerations is, should you have a channel strategy and plan? We, as a panel, certainly believe you do, but let's find out what's happening on the ground. Justine, what have you seen? Are companies proactively thinking about a channel strategy and a plan for execution before they embark on this journey, or what's really happening on the ground in your experience?
A bit of both, really. So some go head first without a plan and expect it to be hugely successful, and some go with a good plan. And then you have the other category where they over plan and they spend all their time planning, and they don't execute on any of it because the plan is so complex that it becomes too difficult to deliver. So I think for me, when we work with organizations and they're doing their first steps to international work, we try and keep everything as basic and as simple and as executable as possible. Don't go in with we try and say, don't have 100 things to do. Try and get the first 5 right, and then you build on top of that. And there are companies that do that, but for me, the majority overplan or do it speculatively, thinking, hey, we don't need to plan, we're going to be successful, our product is super, and then it comes with all sorts of complexities that drown them and make them back away from a channel. So yeah, I think for me, a plan is critical. A plan should not be complex, a plan should be executable, and everybody in your business should be, working towards delivering that international plan together.
Great. And Nehul, given that you also have a tremendous network of people that have come into your region, what's your experience, Nehul, of people's balance between strategizing and planning and execution success?
Well, there's this quote by Sun Tzu, right, that I really like, and it's there in almost all our decks, so I really like talking about it, right, which is strategy without tactics is the slowest route to a victory, and tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat, right? And it's actually very critical to understand that from that perspective. One of the key things that I always tell people who are embarking on a channel journey, right, is to kind of adhere to what we call it as the 3 Ps of channel, right, which is planning, perseverance, and patience, right? So you got to have a good plan. It needs to be agile. It needs to be adaptable to the different region, to the different product portfolio, to the different type of partner that you want to work with, right? And then it needs to be adaptable. You need to constantly review if that plan is functioning or not, right? Either through MBRs, QBRs, quarterly business reviews or monthly business reviews, and with your partners or with your internal organization. But you need to constantly keep it. That plan needs to be a live document, right? Attached to a broader strategy scenario. Second is perseverance, right? And I'd like to make a very key point here. Partners are not your employees, right? They are in business for themselves. They're doing business to earn profit and revenue for their own organization, and the vendors and the products are just a medium for them to earn that, right? Which means that if they're not highly focused on you today, that's because you do not have a wallet share with them, which allows them to focus on you, right? The good strategy would be to continue to persevere with them. If they're a good partner, you know they're the right partner, you need to persevere with them and ensure that they are successful with you before you look at whether you're successful with them or not, right? And that's going to turn the cycle around for them to continue to work with you. Last is patience. It takes time to forge a new path, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. You cannot expect that what takes your own team weeks or days to achieve, your channel will have the same journey. In fact, it takes longer, but it's the upfront investment of that time, effort, and energy that you're doing with your channel that pays over a longer period, right? Because you've trained them, you've skilled them, but they still need time. They need hand holding, right? At least 3 to 6 months. They need to know how to position your solution, how to handle objections, right? And that cannot happen overnight. Even if you've trained them, even if they're certified, they still need that time, right? Because that training is in a classroom environment. It could be like a session like this, right? It's not on the job. It's not live. They don't know what kind of a question the customer is going to come up with. So that's, so you need to have patience and ensure that you're working around with that. And lastly, I would say the core ethos of strategy is choosing what not to do, right? You need to look at what you shouldn't be doing when you build your channel strategy and your channel plans, rather than only discussing what I should be doing. And because that's where the gaps really come in. And if you're able to identify what your weaknesses are, you'll have a better strategy and a better plan and a better execution perspective than ever before. Yeah, that's my point.
Super. I love that quote, Nehul, that partners are not your employees. Very, very good point. And it's the whole concept. It has to be a two-way relationship. Great point. One of the other areas I'd like to get your perspectives on is what about the skills and capabilities that people need to look for when they're actually hiring or building or recruiting their own channel team? So again, if I can start with you, Nehul, what sort of the key skill sets that you see that people need when they go to recruit people for their channel team?
The channel business is all about relationships, right? We do business with people because we like them, right? We rarely want to do business with somebody we don't like. It's about relationships. Most organizations, when they put a channel manager in place, we've seen them look at it that does he have the domain knowledge? That can be taught if he understands the broader perspective of that domain. That product knowledge could be delivered, but relationship is something that he spent years building that you can't teach. You have to, it's taken time to build that person's network. So our guidance always is to ensure you get someone who has the relationship rather than getting someone who only has the domain knowledge and no relationships. Having said that, I would also caution that don't just bring every partner that your channel manager knows into your ecosystem. They may not be right. At Enabler One, we follow something which is called the best fit analysis framework, right? You identify if the partner's persona fits your portfolio, your strategy, and your structure of program, right? So it's not, but yes, the advantage of having someone on board who has a relationship is you cut short your go-to-market time beyond what it would have otherwise taken. Second, the skill that I would say within the channel manager should be is he is the partner's advocate within his organization. It's not the other way around. He's not his organization's advocate at the partner side. He's the one who has to ensure that he is front-ending his partner inside the organization. He's positioning them, giving them the limelight, giving them the visibility that they need to grow within the channel ecosystem. Lastly, channel business is not just a channel manager's responsibility or a sales manager's responsibility or a marketing team's responsibility. It is the responsibility of the entire organization, pre-sales, post-sales, finance, HR. Everyone has to be involved in ensuring the success of the channel program, because they'll all be involved in some part of the engagement or the other going forward through the journey and the life cycle that they have with the partner. And if they have not been empowered accordingly, or they've not been given the right training or the skill or even the right KPIs, then it's always going to be that the partner was bad or my channel manager was bad, but you've not really analyzed that the whole organization did not really adopt the program the way it should have been. So yeah, that's what I would say are the skills.
Super, thanks, Nehul. And Justine, anything additional to that you would add?
Just a reflection on the role, really, because a channel manager has many duties, and that's from, you have to wear many caps: a marketing cap, a sales cap, an advocate cap within your business. You need to be a business manager, run a P&L for your success with that partner. So having that capability to have multi skills, I think, is really important. But for me, the frustration that I hear with most channel managers is that people don't get back to people. And so for me, being proud that you deliver a fabulous service to your channel partners, and you are reactive and you are proactive, and you don't let your partners wait for days to get back to them, to me is critical part of that. You can have all the connections in the world, you can have all the best marketing, best channel skills, but if you don't get back to your partners, you will be frustrated. And I guarantee you, I hear that about 50% of channel managers. So just being proud of what you're delivering and being part of their team as well as your own team, yeah, is key to me.
Perfect, thanks. And just on that point then, Justine, probably good to just get a quick input from that whole area of responsiveness back to partners. We touched earlier in terms of what sort of platforms you should have to support that. In your experience around channel governance and engaging, does tooling have a value and an impact? What's your thoughts on tooling for setting up your channel?
A PRM system has a huge impact, huge positive impact on delivering a service both to the business, the vendor itself, and the partners. So I work with many companies, we've worked with many PRM systems, and I absolutely believe it is, you know, they are the best channel manager in as an overall. You have always on availability for your marketing tools. I don't need to wait for my channel manager to get back to me to send me a data sheet or a document. I can get that information at my fingertips. I can automate when I want to do a deal registration. It goes through a system. It's already there. I can you know, do many things within my portal. I can do training. I can get all the information I need, and that's great from the partner perspective. But also, one of the points Nehul made was often there is part of the business that believes in the channel, and there's part of a vendor that doesn't believe in the channel, and it's very difficult to convince them that actually the work we're doing is really good. It might take a little bit of time to produce results, but all this effort is going in the right direction. A PRM system allows you to visualize, you know, who's doing what activity, who's downloading what data sheet, who's registering deals, and all that information can be easily shared with everybody in the organization. So for me, the sooner an organization invests and grows with a PRM system, the more success they will have.
Perfect. And I'm getting word here that we have a lot of questions coming in as well to Brenda. So what I'd like to do then is we want to get to the poll results to show what's there. So if we can just wrap up then with the initial panel. Nehul, would you summarize what you would say is your top 3 tips for people in the audience, you know, to make your path to channel successful? What's your top 3?
So number 1 is it's a journey, no shortcuts, right? You need to be ready to invest into that program, into that model, into the market you wish to enter into. So that's one of the key aspects, right? No, there are no shortcuts. Second, again, I'm going to reiterate myself, partners are not your employees. You've got to build a program and a structure that ensures that they are as profitable working with you, and which is where the relationship will last longer than ever before. And lastly, the channel business is not your salesperson's role only. You've got to have the whole organization internally geared to support that channel manager and the channel organization in the front to ensure that it's a successful model. It's a combination of all these 3 things that I believe will always ensure a successful channel journey for any organization.
Thanks, Nehul. And Justine, your top 3, please.
I'd probably just add a couple actually. So because I totally agree with Nehul, but I have one thing. So I think your channel is only as good as you make them, right? So you cannot expect a channel to go out and be excellent if you don't educate them, you don't enable them. So for me, your channel is as good as you make them. And if they fail, it's not them that's failing, it's you as an organization. So take care of your channel, treat them as a true partnership, because they are your warriors out in the fields. And if you don't enable your warriors to win, you know, at the end of the day, it will be you that loses. So I think that to me is a really key point to add to Nehul's 3 other top tips.
Wonderful. And Brenda, apologies, I skipped past one poll. Do you want to just complete the last poll, Brenda, and then we'll get into the panel review of the others, please?
We will, of course, yeah. So obviously building a channel is one thing, but a key question people need to ask is, do you know how to measure your channel success? So do you have kind of metrics to measure whether the channel has been successful for you? Okay, you see the results coming in. So, and as John mentioned, we've had a couple of questions come in already. We're going to get to those in a few minutes. But if anybody else has a question that they'd like to ask the panel, please feel free to submit it there now. Okay, and I'm going to close that back out. And John, I'm going to go back to the first panel, or sorry, the first poll, and just share the results of that with everybody. So the first one was, is your company planning to build its first channel network in the next 12 months? So as you can see, 22% said yes, nobody said no, and 72% already had a channel and 6% weren't sure. So any kind of feedback on that, guys?
Yeah, I think, Justine, do you want to give a comment on this? It's probably no surprise to us, panel, that the majority of companies are using the channel, but any surprising things here, Justine, that you see?
No, not really. Having looked at the audience, the not sure, I think, is a super one, because though I would be really interested to understand why people are not sure and what's holding them back. Is it the right reasons holding them back, or is it the wrong reasons holding them back? So that's the not sures that I'm interested in. But the other results, I would say, are very common. What
yes.
you expect.
Thank you. And Nehul, any final observations on that one?
No, I think I personally think a lot of people are looking at channel, which is what it comes up to, right? About 94% that are focusing on channel, and I think that's the right strategy if they've got the right product portfolio and everything. And again, I would also reiterate what Justine said. Yes, 6%. So is there a right or a wrong reason why no channel? But then what kind of what would nudge them? What makes sense for them? And I think that would be it. But yeah, I think it's more or less in line with what we expected.
Yeah, agreed. This one's fascinating. I'd love to have done this poll in January of this year. Is your company planning to scale its channel? And this is a resounding 81% yes. So that would have been a fascinating comparison if we'd have done this in January. Nehul, any surprise with that figure?
No. I think this is going to grow, I would say, over the next few months, John, especially with the last few months, people having been stuck where they are. Channel is a very natural route, right, to try and penetrate markets which you are unable to enter yourself, and to exploit on the existing channel relationships, or the channel's relationship with the customers. So I think this is a no-brainer that people should be looking at it, and I think I'm happy to see that so many are already planning to scale it.
Yep, perfect. Brenda, do you want to bring us up another one, please, then? Yep, so do you think the company has the right talent and skills in-house? This, on balance, is probably a pretty honest survey where just under 50% think yes and 40% think no. Justine, do you want to comment on this?
I just find it a very interesting result, and I do think it's very honest. I think if it had been 100% yes, we have all the skills, I don't think any organization, or not many organizations, have it perfect. So it's nice to see honesty. Yeah, that's my only comment on that one.
I think if this had been 100%, there would have been no business model for you or Nehul, right?
So, absolutely.
So this is very encouraging, and
not yet. When it's all 100%, we tend to come into play 6 months later. So
correct. True.
Okay. So again, this is interesting. What tools will you use, or do you use? So no surprise, I think, to any of us here that CRM is at the top of the stack, and then partner portal. But again, there's this significant tailing off of people that are using PRM systems or even LMS systems. So again, Nehul, do you want to give a commentary on this one?
Sure. I think this becomes a natural extension to the direct sales model, right? So they may already be having a CRM system in play, and which is what they're going to naturally extend to the partner network. A lot of them may, and this is sometimes surprising, right? But I've known a lot of organizations have not even heard of a PRM system as a separate, governance tool. And that's where I think some of those gaps could be. or maybe not understanding the importance of why you need a separate partnership or a partner relationship management tool compared to just a simple CRM governing both sides kind of a scenario. But an LMS also makes a lot of sense, especially if you want to deliver repeated training, or a scalable training across multiple geographies. So yes, but that's I was not surprised with that result, that CRM was on the top.
Yep. And do you know how to measure your channel success? So 70% or close to 70% are saying yes. I find that quite an interesting result. Justine, any comment on that?
I find that quite high.
Yes.
And for me, so yeah, often perception is that we see people believing they measure it. Now, so for me, yeah, I find many vendors don't know how to measure it properly, or are measuring metrics that are good for the ego rather than good for the revenue. So yeah, for me, that's quite a high result, I would have thought.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm surprised at this one.
Absolutely.
Brenda, do we have any more poll results before we get into some questions? Maybe one more? Or is that it? I think that's probably it.
Yeah, that was the last of the poll results.
Okay, so Brenda, yeah, we'll let you feed questions in the few minutes we have left to the panel. If you want to take what you've received, we're open.
Okay, first question in is from Ken, and Ken asks, what are the key points to partner success with sales to get partners selling more?
Nehul or Justine, who wants to jump in with that one?
So let me understand this. So I'll take a shot at it, right? So what are the key, could I have the question again? So it's what are the key success elements, right, for a partner to engage with the partner sales team, or?
Yeah, so what are the key points to partner success? So how can a vendor make a partner successful? How do they get them to sell more?
So 2-3 things, right? And I think we've covered a lot of those as part of the pitfalls during today's conversation, right? In terms of you can't treat the partner as your employee. You cannot just say, okay, you've signed my partnership and now you're going to go and sell. You got to walk the talk with them hand in hand, handhold them for the first 3 to 6 months. And I think those are the most critical period, right? That's the most critical period in a new relationship. Second is you've signed a partner on. Have you put a launch plan in place with that partner? Do you do something? Have you decided the next steps, right? What are you going to do? Or how are you going to announce the market to the market that you guys are working together? How are you going to go and attract certain customers? How are you going to go do what kind of marketing activities together? How are you going to train your own teams? All of those elements together will ensure it's the hard work. You got to get the basics right. Right? That's the most critical part. If you do the basics right the first 3 to 6 months, then the success will automatically come in because the partner sees you investing the time, effort, energy to making them successful, and they'll be more focused with you rather than saying, okay, the guy comes and sees me once a month and asks what's the business, and that's it. Then I see him next month. That's never going to work. But those relationships don't survive long.
Super.
Okay, thanks.
Brenda, have you another one for us?
I have a few more, so I'll just throw them out there, and whoever would like to answer them. This one is in from Paul, and Paul says, I'm new to the channel. What do partners really want from vendors?
Justine, do you want to give a view on that?
So I'm new to the channel. What do partners really want from vendors? Was that the question?
Yeah. That's it.
Partners really want from vendors. Okay, they want them to be honest. They want them to have a clean channel program. They don't want to be selling against the vendor's sales team in a deal. They want to be, what I would define as a clean channel program. They want to work alongside the vendor and not a them and us approach. So a partnership. I really, sorry, my phone is, 1 second. Being in a partnership is really important. It's not them and us. So for me, if you're going to be a good vendor, be an honest vendor, deliver what you say you're going to do, have a clean channel strategy, and have a great channel manager who is, working alongside the partner that they're engaged with. So
great insights. Yeah,
John, if you don't mind, right? So at Enabler One, we do an annual survey of the channel partners across Middle East. It's called the Channel Speak Survey. And this is one of the questions we ask the channel partners in terms of what kind of support you're looking at from your vendor or your distributor, right? Over the last couple of years that we've run this report and release it, the surprising thing that comes out is still the same basic three things. We want to be trained properly, right?
Yep.
We want marketing support. Most SMB channel partners may not have in-house marketing teams. They need help in building that whole marketing capability into the marketplace, right? And they need sales support or pre-sales support together, right? Because they're still learning about your technology, about your product, and they need that help initially, right? So these are the three most common points that have come up over the last 2 years from the channel partners, that this is what I want from my vendor.
Super, thanks Nehul. And Brenda, I'm conscious we're coming up to the top of the hour, but do you want to see if you have another one or two quick ones we can take?
Perfect. So this one is in from Owen, and Owen asks, how long does it take for a channel to become an effective sales engine?
Ooh. How long is a piece of string? Who wants to pick that one?
I had exactly the same answer. Yeah, depends on the technology. It can take, depends on the value of the technology as well, but typically, yeah, it's a difficult one to answer directly.
Yeah, it's got multiple components to it, right? You've got technology that plays a factor into it, markets that play a factor into it, what industries you're trying to go after that plays a factor to it. Have you got the basics done right with the partner that plays a factor to it? So it all, there are too many elements, to give a very straightforward answer to that question.
And I think one key thing though, Nehul, is back to a point you mentioned, if you know that your average sales cycle is 6 to 9 months, don't be expecting your partners to sell it in 3 months, right?
No.
So make sure you know the very key business ratios. What's your average sales cycle? What's the time between stages? What's the average order value? If you don't have that data science, you cannot inform your channel, and you certainly can't expect them to be doing it faster than you. Okay?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Brenda, we might take one more and then we'll give people back their time.
Okay, perfect. So final question, what are the typical margins needed to plan for to give to the different channel partner types? So I know there's a number of different partner types. So John, maybe if you wanted to give an example for 2 or 3 different ones, what kind of margins should vendors be aiming for?
Yeah, and I'll probably pass this to for additional guidance, Nehul and Justine. So very powerful question. So let's say you're using distribution. Typically, if you're using distribution, the distributor will take the significant slice of the margin, but that slice then has to be apportioned out to the reseller community. And remember, distributors typically work on very thin margins. Okay, so just to give you guidance, for system integrator consulting partners, they may take a significant slice as well of that margin given their scale and volume. And then if you've got smaller referral reseller partners, you may have a much lower margin for them. So there's 2 elements, and again, I'll get Justine and Nehul to comment. And the other type to think about then is your renewals business. It's very traditional not to give as much margin for renewals business as for new sales. And it's particularly important in today's SaaS world that you think very carefully about your renewal margin strategy, particularly after the first year or the second year. Do you always give renewals margin to the channel? So think about those elements. To start with you, Justine, maybe you've got some specifics that you know from your business. You're in the sort of startup cyber tech space.
So it's very interesting for me. So it really does depend on the technology. So SaaS technology is typically lower margins. And again, the difference between a value-added distributor and a broadline distributor is, I would always say, is around 20%. So if you want somebody to be evangelistic, and you have to remember they are commission only, they don't make any money till they sell something, and you want them to go out to the market, you need to make it as profitable as possible in that when you're on the way up the ramp, when you're an emerging vendor. So value-added distributors cost theoretically more, but then they are doing the work for you. So, you know, if you expect people to go out, invest, do marketing campaigns, and have a 9-month sales cycle, when the revenue comes, you need to show that it will be a healthy margin. And that's my advice from a cyber tech standpoint. Broadliners take less, but you need to make the market. Value-added distributors and resellers do the work, but then they expect compensation that's relative to that.
Thanks, Justine. And Nehul, from your experience, just to wrap us up today.
Sure. Again, technology plays a big hand in terms of what kind of margins you could shell out, right? I mean, if it's hardware driven, if it's a box pushing hardware, or if it's a solution driven hardware, whether it's SaaS, whether it's endpoint protection from, you know, which has become highly commoditized. So the more the commoditized the product, by default, the margins are not that high across the ecosystem per se. But the moment you talk about a product which needs to be solutioned, which needs to have that consultative touch to some extent, you need to start giving out that margins further down, whether it's to your distributor. Yes, and as I would completely concur with Justine, a broadline distributor to a value-added distributor, the margins would obviously differ. And then further down to the partner, who's going to do the effort in the market for you. Another element that I would actually ask a lot of people to look at it is don't just look at the straight up front end discount based margin structures, but try and build in elements of sales rebates or different kind of incentivization programs if the partner and the distributor are achieving some amount of different skill sets, different elements to grow your business in that market, and incentivize them on those elements and not just only on the revenue, and you'll start seeing better result also because of that.
Thank you. So Justine and Nehul, on behalf of the audience and Channel Mechanics, thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom today, and to everybody for attending today. Brenda, I'll hand back to you to close this out. Thanks again for hosting us, Brenda.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.